Welcome to another edition of Living Room Conversations, but not the living room, as you can tell. This is the dining room, and we have some special activities planned today, or actually my wife has planned those activities, but it got me to thinking. And so we just want to share some conversation with you this afternoon and share some memories, some stories, and let you kind of look in and take part of our making Easter eggs, or our decorating Easter eggs rather, and all the stories and all the memories that are attached to that. As I was thinking about sharing this moment with everyone else, I don't think my wife kind of had planned for this moment to be shared with everyone else, but
not at all.
Different times require different strategies. Let's put it that way. But as I was thinking about this and sharing this moment, I felt it was kind of important to address a scripture that kind of came to my heart and mind. In Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus, he says in Ephesians chapter 5, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is." Redeeming the time. That is, I believe, something we always struggle with. Now, my wife excels in that. This is a lady that redeems every single second of the day.
I would not say that.
She feels every single second with something. There is hardly not an idle moment in her day. And
there is a reason for that.
Yeah, that's right. Because I leave a lot of messes for you to
That is not what I
deal
meant.
with,
That
right?
is not what I meant.
But I want to talk about redeeming the time, and how it applies to where we are now, and what we're all dealing with, and what we're all facing. What do we do with this time? Things are different. We're, quote, sheltering in place. We're limiting our activity. We're social distancing, and what impact does that have on us? And as I've stirred all these things in my mind, with intention, I choose not to get involved in the political discussion. Naturally, our nation is very divided along those lines, and there's 45% of the people feel this way about it, and 40 to 45% people feel this way about it, and there's a small cluster in the middle who are just not sure, and they lean one way and then the other way, and I'm not sure that that's a good use of our time, nor do I believe it really redeems the time. So how do we redeem the time? And there's a couple of words that kind of jump out at me in this passage, and one is that he says that we're to walk circumspectly. That's a fancy way. It's like it's kind of like the what was the actor's name in the National Treasure movie?
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. Yeah, he had a line in there. It was one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. He was reading some of the old language, and he says, "People just don't talk that way anymore. People don't use the word circumspectly anymore. It's not in our normal vocabulary." But Paul says that we should walk circumspectly. What that literally means, or what it actually means, is that we walk with planning in mind. We walk with thought in mind. It means that we choose a prudent path. We give some thought about to the next step we take. And not just reactionary, but proactionary, if you will, planning that step. And so Paul is telling us to approach our day, or approach our life, or approach any given moment, an activity, approach it with a level of circumspection, that you've planned that moment, you've engaged your mind and your thought process, you've allowed wisdom to kick in, hopefully, and you're choosing a path that might have a good end, that might have a good outcome.
We really hope this project has a good outcome.
I really hope this has a good outcome.
Yep.
But he says to redeem the time. After he says for us to walk circumspectly, he says for us to redeem the time because the days are evil. Oh, naturally your mind can create so many pictures when you say the days are evil. The days are perilous. The days are, that lends itself to this notion that there's always a demon or an enemy hiding behind every bush. And I'm not minimizing the spiritual warfare layer of this at all. But what Paul is really communicating here is that the evil is not merely just bad. It can include that level of spiritual warfare, but it's also considering the background noise. We're living in a culture where there's a lot of background noise. There are annoyances. There are things that interrupt your thoughts. There are things that interrupt your mind, your activities, and you're trying to have a conversation in a loud place, and you can't hardly keep your train of thought because that's one of the reasons my wife likes to pray and read her Bible in silence. Yes. Where I choose to I kind of prefer to have some soft worship music in the background. The way she's wired is that she wants it silent.
Well, there is a history to that. We discovered when I was pregnant with our son. We tried going to sleep to calm me down because I had so much stress during that pregnancy. To calm me down, we tried listening to easy listening music. And I kept waking up exhausted, and we couldn't figure out why, till we realized that in my mind, as I was laying there, I was putting the words to the tunes all night long, and it didn't come out well. I wasn't getting any sleep, so we had to stop that completely. So there is a reason for that.
That's right.
I need quiet.
So this evil that Paul is talking about here is dealing with all the background noise.
The distractions.
Because there's a lot of distractions, because there's a lot of annoyances, because when you turn your TV on and you're inundated with this opinion or that opinion, and it just kind of gets your heart in a state of consternation. It gets your heart in a dither, so to speak. And Paul's saying because these conditions exist around us, he says, redeem the time. Redeem the time. And I've done a lot of thinking about what does it mean to redeem the time. And it really, to get to the heart of what I think Paul means, you really have to get to the heart of what redemption means and how it applies to us. And yesterday we celebrated Easter. This is Easter Monday, and in the message that I shared with you yesterday, we talked about that day of redemption, that another day of creation called redemption that God had. And what redemption means to me is God seeing value in something that was broken or deficient and saying, I'm going to pull value out of that. I think by its very definition, redemption is seeing the value in something and then pulling the value out of that, or redeeming the value from that. And that's exactly what Christ did to me, because I would have discounted myself many years ago. Even as a child, I would, if you'd have told me when I was an adolescent that I would one day be a preacher, I would have laughed in your face. I was a profuse stutterer. I still stutter. You hear it on my videos, I'm sure. But I was a profuse stutterer. And those were difficult times, and very hard times, and very bitter times. I was bitter about it, but I would have never considered that God could have used me because I was so flawed. I was so broken, as it would be. But redemption is seeing potential and pulling value out of that, and creating something good. One of the easiest examples of redemption, if you're our age or older, you remember S&H green stamps.
Oh yeah.
Raise your hand if you remember S&H green stamps.
Definitely.
We went to the grocery store in my hometown here in Plymouth. Our grocery stores was the A&P store and the Colonial store, and you'd get the sale paper in our local paper, the Roanoke Beacon, and they would have the sales for each of the stores, and it wasn't like Ford and Chevrolet.
Oh, no.
You shopped at both stores. You might have had a little bit of a preference one over the other, but you shopped the sales at both stores. Mm-hmm. And we would go to those stores, but up at the upper right-hand corner on a rack that was built there beside the cashier, beside the cash register, rather, when they totaled your bill up, and by the way, the cash registers were not these electronic things we had today. It was very mechanical, and they had these buttons they would have to levers they would have to mash.
And they did not tell you the exact amount of change to give. You had to figure that out and count it back. And if you could count it back, great. If you couldn't count it back, you were in deep trouble.
Let's suffice it to say, people today would be lost.
This is true. This is true. You can't even. Yeah. Anyway.
But we digress.
Yes.
But anyway, at the upper right hand side on the rack beside the cash register was this box that looked like a big telephone dial. For those of you who are millennials or younger, you don't remember
don't
telephone
even know
dials.
that.
But when I grew up, telephones had a dial that you stick your finger in and turn it. Well, this had a big wheel about that big around, and it had numbers, and depending on the amount of your purchase at the grocery store, they would stick their finger in the appropriate hole and wind it around, and it would spit out a certain number of these stamps called S&H green stamps.
They were green.
And they would issue you a book, and then you would go home and stick these stamps in this book. And if you filled up so many books, you got to go to a place called, ours was in Rocky Mount, which is about an hour's drive from here, and it was called the S&H Green Stamp Redemption Center. There's that word again, Redemption Center. And so we had a drawer, and I think most people had this. We had a drawer in our kitchen area that was the dedicated drawer for all the stamps. You'd open this drawer, and there was 4 or 5 different partially filled books, and there was this spaghetti wad of green stamps that were just there, because when you get home from the grocery store, no one has the time to
sit down and
lick them and stick them in this book.
These were not self-adhesive. They did not do that.
But we would fill our green stamp books with stamps on times like when the power goes out, when we would have a power outage.
I don't know when we did that, but
that would be when we would sit down. Okay, let's fill the green stamps. I used to put model cars together during the power outages. Different things, you couldn't do those things. But what it amounts to is that you'd have a catalog, an S&H green stamp catalog, and it would have different things in it. And you could take those green stamps and turn them into a basketball or a blender. They had some larger things there, but believe me, you would have to live about 185 years and spend a lot of money every week to save enough stamps to get this large item.
Yeah.
But so many books would get you so many things. You'd have the catalog, instead of having prices there, it would have how many books were required to get that item. But I said all that to say this, that there was no inherent value to those stamps unless you took them to a place where the value could be extracted from that stamp, and it was a redemption center. And so that's what God did for us. He saw us and pulled value out of us and added his own value to us. But Paul is saying, with that same mindset, why don't you redeem the time? Why don't you see the value or the potential in a span of time, and then find value in that moment. Mm-hmm. And by walking circumspectly, you plan and you say, okay, I can add value to this moment and pull value out of that moment by doing this activity. Well, that brings us to this Easter Monday afternoon. In this age of social distancing and sheltering in place, the question becomes, what do you do? Well, the easiest thing to do is to be a couch potato.
And watch TV.
Yeah, and watch TV. Day. Binge watch your favorite Netflix series or whatever, and
HGTV.
Exactly. We have watched, what is it called, Hometown?
Yes.
We have watched so many episodes of Hometown, and
rewatched a few.
I get to a place sometimes. I said, honey, I just need to watch something with some killing going on.
Murder and mayhem.
So that something You can only handle so much HGTV or Hallmark or any of these other things, but we've enjoyed that time. But we've tried to be very calculated and do some things that maybe we haven't done in a long time. And what we're doing today, we haven't done in a very long time.
Oh, very, very long time.
Well, our kids are what now?
38. Is it 38? They're not have birthdays yet.
No,
So it'd be 38 and 34.
that's right.
Because they'll go
That's
to,
right.
won't it?
I think that's right.
Well,
You see, that's the part of getting old. One thing I do know, I'm just a couple of weeks away from being 60 years
81,
old.
okay, they were born in 81 and 85. So
81
after
and
the year, you're
85.
off.
There you go. But in any case, a lot of decades have passed. And
Yep.
this is an activity we would do when they were young, and it certainly is an activity that we would do when we were young.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
so we decided, my wife decided actually, this is one of the ways we wanted to redeem the time and do some things that would stir up a memory and stir up and be an activity that we could do together. Maybe in this video I'll splice in some of the footage of our egg hunt yesterday. My wife did an egg hunt with me yesterday, or actually she hid the eggs and then sent me on a journey to find them. And it was interesting to say the least. But
It's very short.
very short. Yeah, she only hid 6 eggs, and I really only had problems finding one.
Which
but,
was really funny.
she thought it was funny.
Well, because it was the most obvious one.
But little things like that are ways that we can add value to this time that we have, that causes us to stop and remember
And do things together.
and do things together, and then kind of stir up memories of the past that are just wonderful, great memories.
Well,
And so we'll share a few of those memories today with you. We'll cut out some of the dead spots, hopefully, but
yeah, a lot of the dead spots.
but we'll share some of those memories. And so welcome to our home, our dining room, and we just hope you enjoy the silliness of this moment. You can redeem time with silliness, and this is one of those ways. And I encourage that once in a while. It's very productive. But let's get started.
All right.
So we've got to
Step 1. Put on an apron.
Yeah, I knew that my wife would say you can't wear that. Well, her first words a while ago was, "Don't you think you should have worn a different shirt?" And I said, "Honey, I came prepared. I knew you were going to say that." So I brought my apron.
And in line with circumspectly, it dawned on me that I need to put these on a tray so that I don't get dye all over the table. Because they tell you not to do that. Alright, got a half cup of water here to go into my 3 tablespoons of vinegar. This Easter being different, it's not the first Easter that I have ever had that was different. I'm sure everybody's had one that was different in some way or another. But it's not the first Easter I missed church or missed going to the house of God on Easter. When I was about 7 years old, best we can remember. My mom and I were talking about this. I had rheumatic fever. I had strep throat that went into scarlet fever that went into rheumatic fever. I was very sick. It's a very scary experience for me. I didn't understand really what was going on. I just knew that I was in a lot of pain, that it hurt to move. And my poor mom, I remember trying to dress me to take me to the doctor, and I was just in agony. And I didn't know what really was happening to me, and she just told me that, that was a part of it, but that I was going to get well. So I went to the doctor, and they gave me antibiotics and stuff. But one of the things that happened that I really struggled with was, it was several days that I had fever and stuff, and I guess my fever must have broken. But what happened was, there was this one beautiful spring day. I mean, I was in bed. It wasn't the kind of sick where you just wander around the house and try to figure out things to do. I was in bed. Couldn't get out of bed. It hurt too bad to move. And it was because the rheumatic fever attacks your joints. And I remember this one beautiful spring day. I was laying in bed. Mom had raised the windows. The sun was pouring through. The curtains were blowing in the breeze. And I was trying to wake up. I remember, I'd gone to bed the night before, and I was trying to wake up, and every time I'd wake up, I'd fall back asleep. And this went on all day long, and it scared me. And finally, I have to be honest, I was only 7, okay? I thought I was dying. So I looked at my mom. Finally, one time she came in and I was awake, and she said, "Oh, you're awake?" And I said, "Mama, am I dying?" Because I really thought I was. And she said, "No, you're getting better." And I remember, though, that was the week before Easter. And I wanted to go to church so bad. But for whatever the reasons, and Mom can't remember why, and I can't remember why, I couldn't go to church. I could go to the hospital and get a shot every day. I hated that. Penicillin shot hurt horribly. But I could not go to church. And I remember being heartbroken that I could not go to church. And my mom everybody had an Easter dress. And so I had an Easter dress, and my mom let me wear my pretty yellow Easter dress. And I remember sitting on our glassed-in front porch and feeling so sorry for myself because I couldn't go to church. It was unimaginable to me that I couldn't go to church. And this Easter was different. We didn't get to go to the house of God like we normally would, but we were able to sing and worship, and we were able to watch Jeff's message, and we were able to hear other people teach and preach and sing. And I guess I learned from that first Easter that I couldn't go to church, that the world didn't stop. There were other Easters after that where I could go to church. But God was with me in that Easter, and He was with us yesterday.
Yes, He was.
And we had a wonderful day yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Not saying we didn't miss our church family, because we did. We missed our church family bad. We did get to talk to we missed our regular family too, and we did get to talk.
I'm looking forward to hugging our church family.
Yes, definitely. Tight hugs. But anyway, hi church family. We missed you. We really missed you. But I'm grateful. We do get to talk to our family via phone. And different isn't always bad. I think we fear change or something different from the norm, but different isn't always bad. It can be really good. It can be really eye-opening. And I'm grateful. I got to spend it with Jeff. That was great. Usually we're both going 1,000 different directions.
We did get to spend it with Mike and Lisa for a little while.
Yeah, we did.
We did practice. Came over and visited for a while. We sat in the backyard in our chairs,
practice
6 feet apart.
Yep, social distancing.
At least 6 feet apart, and it was just a wonderful time. Thank you, Mike and Lisa, for coming up.
That was great.
Such a blessing.
And thank you for the goodies.
Yes.
We appreciate that. You're doing a professional job there. I'm gonna go rinse my fingers.
Easter Mondays were pretty cool.
And for us, it was Saturdays.
Yeah. Ours was usually Easter Monday.
Our church, it was Easter Saturday.
Most people were out of school Easter Monday, and we would, as I said, when I was very young, we would do activities at the church. We'd go across the street in the field there across from the church, what's now part of our parking lot, and we play softball there. But at some point, we gravitated and started going to Lake Phelps down at Somerset Place. And we'd go to the picnic area there where the camping area is, and they got these large fields. We do the egg hunt. We would grill hamburgers and hot dogs, and in that open field we would play softball. That was a blast. Those were wonderful, wonderful memories of activities with our church family on Easter Monday. It's a lot of fun.
And it was a lot of fun for us on Saturday. We'd usually go to a park and have an egg hunt.
Was it Ferris Park that you guys?
No, that didn't exist.
Okay.
That did not exist. Back when I was a little girl, we attended the Mid-End Church of God, and so we would go to the Mayo Park.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was great. And then they closed that park, and we had to go to Greensboro. So we went to Battleground Park, and they had a lot of good, cool stuff there. So we went wherever we could go. But I think eventually they wound up going to Ferris Park because they did open that. That was not even in existence when Mid-End Park was. But anyway, Ours was always on Saturday. It was always a picnic, fishing, because you could do fishing at the Battleground Park. Had a big pavilion. We just had a great time.
Now the tradition that we've started in the 4 years now that we've been in Plymouth, serving as pastor, we have done what we call Easter Family Day. And we would have, she lost an egg, it drowned.
I also got it on the table. I'm getting it up.
We would encourage people to dress casual for church, and we would, after our worship time for Easter Sunday, we would go outside and fire up the grills, and we'd have some that were Brandon and Mike would usually, or Mitchell would usually do our cooking and our hot dogs and stuff, and the ladies would make desserts, and we'd have chips and drinks, and we would get a bounce house for the kids to play in, and
the adults.
And we would have cornhole boards set up. But I think by far the most enjoyable activity on that afternoon would be dodgeball. We had this big rope that we would spread out in the yard, and the kids, the young people, and a lot of the adults as well, thoroughly enjoyed the dodgeball. I think there was some kind of great joy out of taking an object and throwing it at somebody trying to hit them. But
Not
anyway,
necessarily.
there was a lot of fun. So naturally, we missed having Family Day this year, and but what we are going to do is, whenever we are able to return to activity as normal and we're able to gather again, we're going to plan to do Easter celebration that day. We celebrated Easter yesterday, but we're going to celebrate Easter again when we're able to all come back together, and we're going to have our traditional Easter family day, and have a lot of fun on the grounds and a lot of activities just like we always have, and I'm looking forward so much. I think this may actually be our most special Easter family day that we've ever had. We've done that for years at the previous church we pastored. We did it for years there. But this may indeed be the most precious one, simply because we had to miss it because of what's going on now.
That's pretty.
Well, what would be kind of cool though is for some of you to share in the comments of this video some of your memories, some of your traditions of Easter, things you did with your children.
Things you did with your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
And whoops, that one got away.
Well, this is kind of modern art right there.
You can redeem it. If anybody can fix it, you can fix it.
Yeah.
You are talented. You can do it.
Let me do the yellow again. But yeah, share some of your stories and your comments and just share some of the memories that you have. We would enjoy reading those and sharing with you on those. This is more fun than I anticipated it being.
Really?
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
I told you. You didn't remember. Well, anyway.
But the worst thing that can happen with doing eggs like this is you're excited about eating the eggs afterwards. You would crack the egg and have some salt and pepper. Bite into a boiled egg. The absolute worst thing is to bite into a boiled egg that is not quite done.
I beg to differ.
Not good.
I beg to differ. The worst thing in the world is to bite into boiled egg and get shell.
Well, that's bad too.
That's bad.
That's bad too.
Bad.
I love egg salad, and shells and egg salad doesn't go well together.
Shells in anything egg doesn't go well.
It's kind of like eating something with pecans in it, and there's a piece of the whole in there. It's bitter.
Really tough. I am dipping my purple in blue, and I think that's going to work. It's going to make my purple purplier. Whoops, it rolled. My purple's going to be purplier, and my then I'll have a blue.
Oh look, my egg has got stretch marks.
Stretch mark.
Oh, look at the little
Stress marks.
stretch marks, like people that have gained weight like me who get these stretch marks.
Well, I remember stretch marks from being pregnant, so just saying. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? And I'm actually getting some pink on there too. Look at that. See? My purple is purplier. It had, remember you talked about circumspectly was planning?
Mm-hmm. So you planned that well.
Well, I'm planning. I made an attempt.
Did you plan it or did you stumble across it?
Well, no, I did plan. Well, it was a spur of the moment plan. I did plan to dip my purple egg into the blue, so my purple would be more purple with the blue added to the purple, and then I would have a blue. So see, and somehow I managed a pink, and I don't know how I did that. But see,
Yeah.
look on this side. It's really pretty on this side.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Isn't that pretty? So the key is you dip it in the darkest color first, I think, and then you go to the next lightest, and then
Maybe so.
on that end, and then you gotta let it dry before you dip it in something else. We'll see. I don't know that I know what I'm doing for sure. Mine is pure experimental. It did turn out pretty. Alright, let's see if I can set this over here. Now, once that's dried, I'm gonna dip it on the other side. Okay, ooh, I forgot my pink one.
So why don't you think about how you can redeem the time? Why don't you think about walking circumspectly and not just stumbling through your day, but walking circumspectly with some planning, with some thought in mind. And let me throw one word of caution out there. Redeeming the time is not the lack of rest. Can I tell you, you need to be planning rest? You need to be planning. Rest needs to be just as high a priority on your day and your planning as your activities. Rest is not laziness. Rest is not being slothful. But rest is very needful. God created rest for us. And I remember my doctor, when we lived in Benson, I went to a wonderful Christian doctor named Zane Lipinski. And one of the first questions he would ask me when I would get bronchitis or get sick of any kind and go into the office, one of the first questions he would ask me is, Pastor, are you keeping the Sabbath? And I knew exactly what he meant. He wasn't
didn't mean Sunday.
He knew that Sunday was my work day. Being a pastor, he says, are you choosing another day and getting proper rest? Are you getting proper sleep at night? And so let me just throw that word of caution out to you, that as you think of redeeming the time, it's not about filling every second up with so much stuff that you wind up beating yourself down and feeling guilty when you don't get as much accomplished as you wanted to, but thinking about what you're doing and then planning also for some rest, because rest is important. Doing something like decorating eggs is kind of a release. It's restful.
It depends on who you are.
It stirs up a memory and causes you to think and reflect, and those are positive things. So let me encourage you to redeem the time. Do something out of the ordinary.
Oh, that's pretty.
Take a walk. Go for a drive. If conditions are good this evening, we may actually go right down to the Pungo area and see if we can find any bears. We're fortunate to live in one of the highest densely populated areas for black bears, and so there's some areas that we can drive to most any evening at sunset. And
not far from here
and usually see a dozen or more bears sightings when they come out of the woods and go into the fields right at sunset. That seems to be a pattern that they follow. So choose to do something like that. Do something out of the ordinary. Something you don't normally do.
Don't go somewhere where you're not supposed to, where they've got
Sure.
signs, do not go,
Right.
stop, don't do that. But definitely go.
But these times that are so different can
There's
still be full of joy, can still be full of greatness, and so if we just plan. So the word for the day is
Circumspectly.
circumspectly.
Plan it.
Plan it. Think about it. And then just do it. And enjoy it. Smile. Share with us what you did. So thank you guys for joining us today for our version of redeeming the time. Our version of walking circumspectly in light of all the distractions and stuff that are around us. This has been fun. We've got a little bit left to go, but share with us, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we so look forward to being able to be physically with all of you guys again. And God bless you all. Our prayers are with you. I'm still your pastor. If you need us for anything, please call us. We can have prayer together, and over the phone we'll do what we need to do to love on you and to care for you, and to cause us to still remain connected. Our hearts are towards each of you, and we just pray God's blessings on all of you. And
we love you. You're important to us. And we are looking forward to seeing you in person again.
yes.
Have a blessed afternoon.
So do this to your family member or those that are around you. You that you're sheltering in together, you can do this with one another. So do this right now to those that are around you.
And make sure you don't have dye on your fingers.
Love you. God bless you all. Good evening.